Hello everyone. We were discussing the various characters described by Chaucer in his prologue to the Canterbury Tales. Now, the next character that we are going to meet is a doctor. A doctor too emerged as we proceeded. No one alive could talk as well as he did. A doctor who could talk well. On what subjects? On subjects like medicine and surgery. He was also well grounded in astronomy. It was important to know about astronomy for a doctor during those times because it was believed that the places, the positions of the stars and the planets, it all played an important role in our health. Our doctor, the physician, he watched his patients closely for hours. He would examine what the problem is when they come to them, and when, by his horoscope, he knew the powers of favorable planets, then Ascendant worked on the images for his dependent. Today, we might call it a superstition to judge what disease a person has based on the horoscope. But during those times, this was the way to do it. This was the right way. So this doctor, he knows well. He knows medicine, surgery, and astrology. As soon as he sees his patients, he observes them for a while and he reads the horoscope, see which planet is where, what has happened with all the position of the planets, and then he gives a description about this to the patient. The cause of every malady you'd got, he knew, and whether dry, cold, moist, or hot, he knew their seat, their humor, and condition. So, this doctor, the physician, he knew the causes of all the diseases, whatever malady it is, whatever disease it is, he would know what has caused it. And he would also know their seat, their humor, and condition. Now, here, humor refers to the four humors. Now, there was this conventional theory of humus, that is, during Chaucer's time, physicians believed that the body was controlled by four humors. Now, each of these humor is associated with a body fluid. So, we have four body fluids, that is what they believed: black bile, yellow bile, blood, and phlegm. Now, if any of these body fluids is present in more or less amount than the normal amount, then it will cause some diseases. So, our physician, he knew very well about all these four humors. So, he would find out the cause for a disease and he would know which humor, what condition has caused this. So Chaucer says he was a perfect practicing physician. He knew everything about medicine and surgery. He was very good at astrology. He could read the planets, he could read the horoscopes, the position of the planets and the stars. And he knew about all the four humors. So he was a well learned and skilled doctor. He was well educated and he was also good. He was also skilled at being a doctor. And once the causes of all the illness is known, he gave the man his medicine then and there. He would, just like all the doctors, once you know what is the disease, you would give them the medicine. Now, till here, the description of the doctor was fine. He is a good doctor for us till here. Now, in the coming lines, Chaucer becomes more satirical. Now, in the next line, we read, all his apothecaries in a tribe were ready with the drugs he would prescribe, and each made money from the other's guile. Now, this is where the character of the doctor becomes relatable to us, even in the present modern world. Now, the doctor, he has all his apothecaries in a tribe. That is, there are all this, the chemist, the place from where you buy the medicines. So, he suggests the medicines to the patients, and the patients are supposed to buy these medicines from the people whom the doctor knows. So all his apothecaries in a tribe, they were ready with the drugs that he would prescribe. They knew which are the drugs that this doctor is going to prescribe, and they would keep all these drugs ready. And each made money from the other's guile. So the doctor and the chemist, they are both in an agreement to help each other make money. So the doctor would prescribe medicines which could be bought only from these people, and these people would in turn maybe give some commission to the doctor for doing so. So they would both help each other to make some money. And these people had been friendly for a goodish while. And then Chaucer says, this doctor was well read. He was well versed in all the important works by all the philosophers. Philosophers like Asclepius, Hippocrates, Galen, Rhases, and so on. And then we understand that even though this physician was rich, he kept his health by keeping a diet. He did not eat anything unhealthy, he kept his body healthy. In his own diet, he observed some measure. He kept it moderate. There were no superfluities for pleasure, only digestives, nutritives, and such. He did not eat for pleasure, he just ate what his body needed for staying healthy. And also, he did not read the Bible very much. Now, just now in the previous lines, we saw that he is a person who has read almost everything. He was well educated in almost all the medical philosophies. But this person, if he has not read one book, that would be Bible. He is not well versed only in Bible. All the other things, all the other philosophers is all well known to him. Now, here, if you notice, Chaucer seems to be pointing out that he is a physician, a doctor who gives a lot of importance to his body. He eats food that is nutritious, he doesn't eat just any junk food. But the same person who keeps such good care of his body is not giving enough importance to his spiritual health. A person who is well educated, who gives importance to the health of his body a lot, is not giving the spiritual health the importance it requires. Which also takes us back to the lines where we saw that he gives medicines, he prescribes medicines, and he and chemist have a kind of agreement wherein they, for their own gains, for the gain of both the parties, they decide that the doctor will be prescribing the medicines that is already available here, and they would also make sure that the doctor also gets some profit from this. So, whatever person he is intellectually, spiritually, he is degraded. Now, about his physical description, when we read, we understand that he is luxuriously dressed in blood red garments slashed with bluish grey and lined with taffeta. Taffeta is like silk, a luxurious smooth fabric. He rode his way to the Tabard Inn. Yet he was rather close as to expenses and kept the gold he won in pestilences. Pestilences here refers to Black Death or plague in the 14th century. So, most of England's population was affected and killed by this disease, and the physicians during those times took advantage of it. Now, Chaucer says that all the gold he has with him now is all what he has won during the time of the plague from his patients. And this physician, he seems to be not spending the gold he has. He seems to be saving it, collecting it. And Chaucer in the last two lines, he says, gold stimulates the heart, or so we are told. He therefore had a special love for gold. Now, again, Chaucer is criticizing the physician. That is, during those times, in the 14th century, the physicians used gold in liquid form to make a medicine, a very high costly medicine, which was thought to be the best treatment for some diseases, maybe for plague. So Chaucer is telling, oh, the physician must be such a good man that he is keeping saving all the gold he has in order to make the medicine which is good for the heart. Gold stimulates the heart. So that is why he has the special love for gold. Not that he is greedy, not that he wants all this money. He is just too considerate about his patients. So actually, Chaucer is criticizing him. So we have met the greedy physician. We can compare him to another character we have met before in the prologue, the Oxford clerk. Now, the physician and the Oxford cleric both are well educated. But there is a reason why the physician is educated, and there is a reason why the Oxford clerk is educated. The Oxford clerk, he was very pure. He wanted knowledge because he loved knowledge. There was a pure love for knowledge. But here, whereas in the case of the physician, he was educated, but his education was for financial gain. And that is why we see both these educated characters, wherein one is very poor. The Oxford cleric was very poor. He had to borrow money from his friends. And on the other side, we have the physician who is also educated, but he is using his knowledge, maybe in the wrong way too, for financial gain. The next character we meet is a woman from the city of Bath. She's commonly known as the wife of Bath. She is a very unusual female character, interesting as well as complex. Now, she gives us an insight into the women of 14th century England. The description about this woman begins with the word worthy. A worthy woman from beside Bath City was with us, somewhat deaf, which was a pity. So, the first thing we understand about her is that she is worthy. She is a worthy woman, and then we understand that she was somewhat partially deaf, not completely but partially. Later on, in her prologue before the tale, we understand that she was deaf because one of her husbands hit her, and that led to her deafness. But here, deaf could also mean that sometimes she pretends to not hear what others are telling her. Depending on the situation, she decides whether she has to listen to them or not. Continuing with the description, in making cloth, she showed so great a bent, she bettered those of Cyprus and of Ghent. So, this new female character is not only worthy, it also seems that she had a great financial success in her business as a cloth maker. She surpasses all the cloth makers of Cyprus and Ghent, who were supposed to be renowned for this trade at that time. So, she is a successful businesswoman. And just with that, she seems to break the stereotypes about women of those times. We have a lot of stereotypes of 14th century women, and the first thing we know about her that she is very good at business, that itself seems to shatter all that. In all the parish, not a dame dared stir towards the altar steps in front of her, and if indeed they did, so wrath was she as to be quite put out of charity. So, in the parish, in the church, while they give the charity or the money for the poor, the most worthy woman, the woman of the highest class, would give the money first, give the charity first, and then others would follow. And here in their parish, not a single woman would go before wife of Bath to the altar to give the charity. And if at all they made a mistake, they go before her. This wife of Bath would be so angry that she would decide not to give the charity and she would walk away. So this could mean two things. Either the wife of Bath was worthy enough to go before everyone, or she wanted others to think that she is worthy. Her kerchiefs were of finely woven ground. I dared have sworn they weighed a good 10 pound, the ones she wore on Sunday on her head. Now, on Sundays, you might have seen women cover their head with the kerchief. So, the kerchief that wife of Bath wore to the church on a Sunday was finely woven, it was embroidered, and it weighed a good 10 pound. It was a luxurious kerchief. Her hose were of the finest scarlet red and gathered tight. She wore stockings, more like our leggings, and it was the finest red, scarlet red color, which was also tight. Her shoes were soft and new. Bold was her face, handsome and red in hue. So her face, she did not look very weak. She did not look very timid. She was bold, she was beautiful, and she had a red hue, a red color, a blush to her face. A worthy woman all her life. She was a worthy woman throughout her life. What's more, she would had 5 husbands, all at the church door. Now, here again, Chaucer is being satiric. She is a worthy woman, but she had 5 husbands, and all at the church door. She married all of them in the church. And this 5 husbands is apart from other company in youth. No need just now to speak of that forsooth. So let's not just dwell deeper into that and let's move on. That is what Chaucer is telling. In the next few lines, we understand she was a woman who went on pilgrimages quite often. She traveled a lot. She has been to Jerusalem, Rome, and such pilgrim places, and now she is going to the shrine of Thomas Becket. So, in a way, she's a widow, even though she had all these husbands and all these affairs in the past part of her life. At present, she is a widow and she seems to be enjoying her freedom in one way or the other. She run her own business. She goes on pilgrimages. She travel by herself. You don't see any other women in the group, the pilgrims group, who has come all alone. You rarely see women in the prologue at all. We only have seen the prioress, and now we have the wife of Bath. Even the prioress, she came as a group. She came in a group. She had other nuns and priests along with her. But here, the wife of Bath, she's a woman and she has come all alone for a pilgrimage, which is so new and so different, so unexpected of women of the times. Now, again, Chaucer being Chaucer, he never leaves any character without a bit of criticism, a tint of criticism. So, we have another line here. And she was skilled in wandering by the way. So, she was skilled in wandering. Now, here, wandering could mean that she goes on pilgrimages every now and then. She goes wandering for pilgrimages. But also, the term wandering could mean that she wanders from one man to another. Now, slowly, we notice that the picture of the wife of Bath is changing. In the beginning, we started to see her as a worthy woman who is doing good business, who is running business well, a very bold and strong woman. But slowly, we find that she is presented as someone who is lusty. And there are many stereotypes that are being associated with her. There are many stereotypes she is breaking, also, by the way, but many stereotypes that would be associated to a lusty woman of the times is being associated with her now. One such feature is the gapped tooth. She had gapped teeth. During those times, gapped teeth suggested that a woman was lustful. She sat very easily on her horse, and on her head she had a very broad big hat like a shield. She had a flowing mantle that concealed her large hips. Her heels spurred sharply under that, so she was well covered. In company, she liked to laugh and chat. She was not a silent, in our terms, we can say she is not an introvert. She liked to laugh and chat and knew the remedies for love's mischances. Now, Chaucer is again mocking her by saying that she's so experienced in the matter of love that she had remedies for all the problems related to love. She knew the art of love. Now, we do not know if Chaucer is pointing out that she is a prostitute. I guess not, because she seems to be a woman who is worthy of more than that. That's about Wife of Bath. Now, she is one of the best known characters from Chaucer's prologue. And according to me, she is a very opinionated woman. She is a very bold and strong woman. Because later in the prologue to the story, you find her putting out a lot of points which are against the stereotypical notions of the time. We also understand later on that her name is Alison, Alison. So, through Alison, we get an insight into the woman of the times. Anyway, with each character, the prologue definitely becomes more and more interesting. Next, we have the parson. Now, the parson is the only devout churchman that you will find amongst all these characters in the prologue. The parson was a holy minded man of good renown. He had good thoughts and he had a good image too. He was poor. The parson, he was a parson, he was a priest to a town, and he was poor, but yet he was rich in holy thoughts and work. Even though, in worldly terms, materialistic terms, he was poor, in his good thoughts, in his holy thoughts and work, he was rich. He was a learned man. He knew the Christ gospel well. He knew the Bible well, and he would preach it. He would talk about to it to his parishioners, and he would also teach them. So, from the very first few lines about the parson, we understand that he is a character who is poor in the terms of money, but rich with his spiritual thoughts. Just from this, we understand that he is a completely contrasting character when we compare him to the friar and the monk whom we have met before in the prologue. Even though both the friar and the monk they were both related to church, you do not see anything devout or anything spiritual in both of these people. They were only after money and they were only after worldly pleasures. But here you have a completely contrasting character, the parson, who is poor and who actually is spiritual. And this parson is a person who is very patient. He would patiently handle all the difficult problems, all the adversities. And Chaucer says it's not simply something that Chaucer is just saying for namesake. He has proved this many a times before, in many adversities before. And he hated cursing to extort a fee. He did not take money or demand money from his parishioners for anything that he did. Nay, rather he preferred beyond a doubt giving to poor parishioners round about, both from church offerings and his property. So he did not take anything from the people. Instead, whatever he had from his own property and whatever the church, the offerings from the church, what people has already offered to the church, it was all given back to the people. He was helping people in need instead of getting money from them. He could, in little, find sufficiency. He was not a person who wanted more money. He was not greedy. He did not want so much of money and worldly pleasures for happiness. He found whatever he had was enough. He only needed the little that he had. And when we talk about his parish, the church in which he works, the parish was very wide. Wide was his parish with houses far asunder. Now, when you say the houses are very far, for a priest who works in a parish, it would be easier for him if the parish, all the houses in the parish are all together, so that he can go from one house to another, visit his parishioners very easily. But when the houses are too far, it's very hard for him to get a connection in the parish. He has to go from one house to the other, which is too far from each other, so it would be very hard for him. And yet he neglected not in rain or thunder, in sickness or in grief, to pay a call on the remotest, whether great or small. So whenever his parishioners called him, whether it is raining or if there is thunder, whether it is because of sickness or grief or whatever it is, he never failed to reach there, even though the houses are very far apart. This noble example to his sheep he gave, that first he wrought and afterwards he taught. Now he was not a person who simply kept telling and giving advices. He did what he advised. First he did. He showed them how it is done, and then he went and preached about it. So this was the best example he could give his parishioners, his sheep. And it was from the gospel he had got those words, and he would add this figure too. He would always quote this line, that if gold rests, what then will iron do? If something so pure and something so precious like the gold is going to rest, then how can iron not rest? So he's telling, if a person like him, a holy person who represents the church, a person like him cannot move away from sins, cannot lead a holy life, then how can he expect his parishioners, the normal people, to lead a holy life? So he wants to be himself a good example, a noble example for his people. So Chaucer calls this the true example. Now, again, in these lines, you might see there are many pastoral imageries like the sheep, the shepherd, the flock. Chaucer is comparing the idea of a parson or a priest taking care of his parishioners to how a shepherd would take care of his sheep. Now, again, Chaucer is talking about all the positives of this person. The parson did not set his benefice to hire and leave his sheep encumbered in the mire. He wouldn't leave his sheep, the parishioners, under any other person. He would take care of them himself, or run to London to earn easy bread by singing masses for the wealthy dead. Now it is very hard for him to stay in the town he is. The houses are apart. He has to work very hard. He wouldn't be rich or wealthy by working here. He knows that, but he did not leave these people just to go to London. He could just sing masses for the people, the wealthy people who are dead, and he could just earn a lot of gold. But he did not do that. nor find some brotherhood and get enrolled. He could have just left all of this and found a new brotherhood and joined that. But he didn't do any of this. He stayed at home and watched over his fold so that no wolf should make the sheep miscarry. So, wolf here refers to the sins or the devil. So, he made sure that he stayed home and looked after his sheep, that the sheep wouldn't be affected by any wolf. Holy and virtuous he was, but then never contemptuous of sinful men. Now, he was holy, he was very good at heart. Doesn't mean he would say, I hate all the people who wouldn't listen to the Bible, who wouldn't live their life in the righteous way. Also, he was not very proud that he is such a good man, and you are not. He was a very gentle, humble man. His business was to show a fair behavior and draw men thus to heaven and their Savior. So, what he wanted to do was to lead a good life and thus make his parishioners also do the same and lead them to heaven and to God. And in the end, Chaucer says, I think there never was a better priest. He was the best priest you can find. He sought no pomp or glory in his dealings, no scrumptious tea has spiced his feelings. Christ and his 12 apostles and their Lord he taught, but followed it himself before. He did teach the Bible, but he followed the Bible first himself before teaching it to others. So, after having discussed this character, the parson, we feel that it was important that Chaucer had first talked about friar and monk first, because without them, we wouldn't see how good of a person the parson is. Or without the parson, we wouldn't see the hypocrisy of the monk and the friar. And parson is a Christ like image here, somebody who takes care of all the sheep, a shepherd like character. So, he kind of symbolizes the Christ too. Along with the parson, his brother, who is a plowman, also came for the pilgrimage. There was a plowman with him there, his brother. Many a load of dung, one time or other, he must have carted through the morning dew. So his brother is not from a high class. He belongs to the lowest strata of society. He was a ditch digger and a dung carrier, more like a person who cleans the place. But whatever his job was, he was an honest worker, good and true. He lived in peace and he also gave charity. And as the gospel bade him, as said in the Bible, he loved God best with all his heart and mind, and also his neighbor. He loved all the others too. So he was a very virtuous person. And even if there were any misfortunes, he would complain. He peacefully did his work without any complaints. He was a true laborer. He was committed to God and he was committed to his work. So, in a way, he was like his brother. He was living a very humble life and he was very committed to God. For steadily about his work he went, to thrash his corn, to dig or to manure or to make a ditch. So he was doing all the menial works or the works that were thought to be menial. He would thrash the corn or he would dig or he would manure or make the ditch. He used to do such works. And he would also help the poor. In spite of being himself a poor person, he would help the poor. And most noteworthy is that he would pay his tithes. That is, in Christianity, it is said that 1/10 of our income, whatever income it is, whether it is big or small, 1/10 of it is to be given to the church or to the God. This 1/10 money should be used to help other people, should be used for charity. So our plowman, he never failed in giving this money. Whenever they were due, he would pay it on what he owned or whatever earnings he had. He would take 1/10 of whatever he had and just give it to the poor. He wore a tabard smoke and rode a mare because he is poor. So here we are meeting a new character who is from the lower strata, the lower class. And again, just like how we compared the parson to the friar and the monk, we can compare the plowman to the characters coming after, like the miller and the reeve. He is also a contrast. When you learn miller and reeve, you understand that plowman is a very good person, and that makes him a contrast to miller and reeve. Also, you notice that whenever Chaucer is talking about the upper class people or the clergy, He shows them as very corrupt. There is a lot of criticism going on. For the lower class, you don't find that. The people who struggle to make a living, the people who come from the lower strata, they seem to be more genuine. So there is no much sarcasm in their descriptions when Chaucer writes. That's all for this video. Please let me know your take on these characters in the comment section. We all will have different opinions. So if you have a different opinion, or maybe if you agree with my opinions on the characters, please let me know in the comment section.